What is going on YouTube? Matty Ice here, and it is week 3 of the college football 2016 season. And we have got some good games for you this week. And we're going to start off with Thursday night's game between the number 6 Houston Cougars versus the Cincinnati Bearcats. Both teams coming to this game 2-0. Houston, they beat Lamar last week 42-0. And Cincinnati defeated Purdue last week 38-20. Houston, Greg Ward Jr., he had to sit out last week due to a shoulder pain, but his coach says that he's going to be ready for this week, and, he might rotate in and out. But they're going into Bearcat country, and it's a 6 o'clock game. It's going to be a night game, and Tommy Tuberville for Cincinnati, he knows how to win ball games, and it's going to be a close one, but I believe Houston is going to pull this one out. I believe they're going to win 24-21 over Cincinnati. Now moving on to Saturday games, it is the Miami Hurricanes at the 25 spot versus Appalachian State. Miami, they're 2-0. They beat Florida Atlantic last week 38-10. Mark Richt, he's 2-0 right now as the Miami head coach. Appalachian State, they defeated Old Dominion last week 31-7. Appalachian State, they were almost defeated Tennessee first game of the year in a big upset. And, it's at home, and Miami, they haven't played a real big test this year. So I'm going with the upset. I'm going Appalachian State 21, Miami 17. Now moving on to the college game day pick, it is number 2 Florida State versus number 10 Louisville. Both of these teams are 2-0. Florida State got a big win last week against Charleston Southern, 52-8, and Louisville defeated Syracuse 62-28. What's interesting about this is Louisville has played on a Thursday and Friday game. This is their first Saturday game, and it is at home for them, and it's a 12 o'clock kickoff. And what's going to be interesting is it's not Florida State versus Louisville, it's DeAndre Francois versus Lamar Jackson. And there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, but Louisville is going to upset Florida State, and they are going to win 45-42. Now moving on to the next game, it is 1-1 Vanderbilt versus 2-0 Georgia Tech. Vanderbilt got a win last week versus Middle Tennessee 47-24, and Georgia Tech defeated Mercer last week 35-10. Like I say every week, when you only have 1 week to prepare for a triple option team, it is hard to defend against them. However, this Vanderbilt team, they are going to rely on a lot of running game, just like what Georgia Tech is. But I believe that Georgia Tech, with the experience at quarterback and Paul Johnson as the head coach, they are going to win this game. I believe it's going to be 21-14. Now moving on to another Saturday game, it is 1-1 Boston College versus 1-1 Virginia Tech. Boston College, they got their first win last week, defeating UMass 26-7. And Virginia Tech, they lost last week in the Battle of Bristol 24-45. And for Boston College, can Patrick Towles, can he get success? Can he actually be the quarterback that people want him to be? And Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuente, he's got them rolling on the right track, and they're going up against a somewhat easy Boston College team. So I believe Virginia Tech is going to win 28-17. Now moving on to the big game this week. It is 2-0 number 1 Alabama versus number 19 and 1-1 Ole Miss. Last week Alabama got a win at home versus Western Kentucky 38-10. Ole Miss defeated Wofford last week 38-13. There hasn't been a team in a while to defeat Alabama 3-0 for 3 straight years in a row. And Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurt, he's going to have to do a lot, and he's only a freshman, and he had a big game against USC, but he's never been in an environment like at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. And Chad Kelly, the quarterback, he's the main veteran for Ole Miss. I believe that he's going to get the big win this week, and I believe Ole Miss is going to win 35-31. Now moving on to another game, it is Pittsburgh sitting at 2-0 versus Oklahoma State sitting at 1-1. Pittsburgh, they got a big win last week versus Penn State 42-39, and Oklahoma State, they lost on a last second play which never should have happened to Central Michigan 27-30. It's going to be a close game throughout these two. Oklahoma State, they got more firepower on their squad, and I'm going to go with Oklahoma State 21, Pittsburgh 20. Now moving on to another game, it is number 22 Oregon versus Nebraska. And, Oregon, they got a big win last week versus Virginia 44-26, and Nebraska got a big win versus Wyoming 52-17. This is the first big real test for each team, but since this game is being played in Nebraska, I have Nebraska winning 24-20. Now moving on to another game, it is number 17 Texas A&M versus Auburn. Texas A&M, they got a big win last week versus Prairie View A&M 67-0. Auburn got their first win of the season 51-14 over Arkansas State. The key in this game is both offenses. Texas A&M QB for Trevor Knight, can this be his breakout game? He's defeated a few SEC teams before when he was at Oklahoma. And he's going up against a tough Auburn team whose defense, they're as strong as they need to be. And their offense finally clicked last week against Arkansas State. You're going to have to score a lot of points to beat A&M. And as I would say the same thing for Texas A&M. And I believe Auburn is going to get the win this week, 42-35. Now we're moving on to Mississippi State. They are 1-1 versus number 20 LSU, who is also 1-1. Mississippi State, they got their first win last week versus South Carolina 27-14, and LSU, they got their first win versus Jacksonville State 31-13. It seems LSU has a little bit of a quarterback controversy from what I've been seeing. They've got a new quarterback over Brandon Harris, and Leonard Fournette, he sat out last week, but he's going to be playing this week against the Bulldogs. Michigan State, they finally found a good quarterback to have to compete against somebody. But I think LSU is going to win this week. I think they're going to win 28-24. Now moving on to the next one, it is going to be a top 20 matchup between number 12 Michigan State versus number 18 Notre Dame. Last week, Michigan State was off despite the fact winning their first game of the year, and then Notre Dame, they defeated Nevada last week 39-10. Notre Dame, it's in South Bend. It's a rivalry between these two, but I believe Notre Dame is going to win this game 35-31. Now moving on to a big matchup, which a lot of people have wanted to see these two teams play for a while. It is number 3, Ohio State versus number 14, Oklahoma. Ohio State, they got a big win last week over Bowling Green, 48-3, and Oklahoma defeated Louisiana Monroe, 59-17. As you know, Oklahoma, they were upset by Houston first game of the year in somewhat big fashion, and they're, Baker Mayfield, he's kind of struggled a little bit, but he's going to have a better game against Ohio State. But you're going up against Urban Meyer and J.T. Barrett for Ohio State, who I believe they are one of the best teams in the country, and this is going to be their first test for them. But I believe Ohio State is going to sneak in and win this one 28-24. Now moving on to a Pac-12 matchup, it is USC versus number 7 Stanford. USC, they defeated Utah State last week 45-7. Stanford, they were off. Christian McCaffrey, he's had a week to prepare against USC. This is, he's going to have another big game like he did the first game of the year. Stanford, they are going to put up a lot of points, but expect USC to compete with them for a little bit. I have Stanford winning this game 42-28. Now moving on to UCLA, who is 1-1. They are playing BYU, who is also 1-1. UCLA, they defeated UNLV last week 42-21, and BYU, they lost to Utah 19-20. BYU, they have won and lost close games in the first 2 games of their season. They're going against a good UCLA team. I think it's going to be another close game, and I think BYU is going to win this one 17-14. Now for the final game that I have picked up, it is number 11 Texas versus California. Texas, they seem to have the ball rolling with Charlie Strong at quarterback. They defeated UTEP last week 41-7, and California, they lost to San Diego State 40-45. California, they're still trying to find their rhythm and on offense for defense for the most part. And they're going to have, and despite the fact that they are playing at home, Texas is going to come in, and I think they're going to, hook 'em horns. I have Texas winning 31 to California 17. And that's my pick for week 3 of the NCAA 2016 football season.